Yes, Kishore.
Okay, let me start sharing my screen and get into presentation mode. Yeah, so good afternoon to everyone. First of all, thanks for joining. I see quite a lot of participants, and yeah, that gets me really exciting. So, yeah, I know that, yeah, for such a huge audience, right, with various levels of expertise and in a platform like Spring Boot, right? I hope there is
Hope
a
there is a
takeaway
takeaway
for each one of you who has joined the
in
session.
the session.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so request you all to go on mute. I keep hearing my same. Yeah, thanks. Right. So, so any technical topic, right, that we kind of aspire to learn, right? So, I mean, so we are immediately hit with a lot of jargons, right? So, which is kind of a hindrance, right? So, immediate. So, let's say that, right? So, I want to learn Spring Boot. Okay. So, yeah, let me close this, and then let's say I type something like Spring Boot. Okay. And then, yeah, okay, I see. Okay, there is a Spring Boot definition from Spring IO. Let me go here and then I see, oh, okay, so these are the features of Spring Boot. Oh, okay, so something like embed Tomcat, Undertow, provide opinionated starter dependencies, right? And automatically configure. Then there is something about metrics, and then it says no code generation and no requirement, right? So what this session is basically going to enable is, right? So next time you visit this page, right? So I mean, my goal here is to basically enable folks who are attending this session to understand what do we really mean by all these, right? And basically to get deeper into some of the jargons that is stated here. Okay, so that's the basic agenda of the session. Okay, and then yeah, I also have a agenda slide as usual, and then yeah, so this is the agenda, and I think some of this was there in the meeting invite as well. Okay, so we are going to discuss the, right, so mainly why do we need something like a Spring Boot in a modern cloud native application? Where does it actually fit, right? And then yeah, so we used to hear about Spring for quite a long time, for yeah, for people with senior experience folks, right? We have been hearing Spring for quite a long time, and then suddenly it's Spring Boot, right? So what is Spring? What is Spring Boot? How is this different, right? And then we will also look into Spring Boot introduction, then some of the major capabilities, right? And then by that we will end the slide session, and then we will go into some demo walkthrough of a hello world kind of Spring Boot application. Then we will try to kind of play around with that application and see, right, how easy it is to configure and develop something with Spring Boot. Okay, right. So I hope I set the expectations right here. So let me start with this. Okay. So what is basically an application platform, right? So let's say get into what are the different layers of an application, right? So I have not started with something like a kernel, right? So not gone that deep. Okay, so let's say that we start with an operating system. Okay, so you will have either a Windows or a Linux or a Mac OS, right? And on top of that you have your JDK, right, or JVM running. Okay, and then you have an application platform, right, which is basically a Tomcat or a Spring Boot or a JBoss or a Micronaut. Okay, and then we deploy our application on top of this. Okay, so what does this application platform really do, right? So when we think about it, right, so in its simplest terms, okay, so this is a very simplistic view of the application platform, not going into details, but from a very simplistic view, right, an application platform basically, right, opens up a socket. Okay, so I say that Tomcat is, or my application is running on such and such port, right? It basically opens up a socket, enables you to have different context paths, right? And then, right, it also provides a queuing functionality, right? So whenever you hit an application on a specific URL, right, so there is kind of a queuing functionality that is there, which basically queues all the input requests and then kind of feeds it one by one to different threads managed within a thread pool, okay, to process your request, right? Like for example, let's say that your application can process only 100 requests, but it receives 150 or right something around that, right? It will still accept those requests, right? But only thing is, right, there could be a slight slowdown because it can process only 100. There are only 100 threads, but 50 are queued, so it is going to take a little bit more time. Okay, so basically this is what it will do. And then it right, so some application platform also provides you with a lot of default binaries, some servlet engines and such stuff, right? Right. So having looked into what an application platform is, right? So let's see, right, like how has this evolved over a period of time? Okay. So yeah, so I think Namita already said, right, I have like an 18 years, right? So have to give something which has been there for almost more than 10 or 15 years ago, right? So that was the Web Oracle, WebLogic, and WebSphere, right? So when I think I started my career, it was either WebLogic and WebSphere, right? So kind of huge in size. Okay, these application software licensed, you have to pay for it, and then right, they kind of bundle all the dependent libraries, right? So if I'm using something like a WebSphere or a WebLogic server, right? You will also get some functionalities to do JMS and right, maybe JNDA lookups, EJBs, right? A lot of things that comes pre-baked with an application server. So huge in size, license, you have to pay money and things like that, right? Then maybe right for I think around the late 2000, right? So around 2008, 2009, right? So maybe Tomcat and JBoss, right? So the open source technologies, right? Wherein you don't have to pay anything, right? Kind of came into a picture, right? So at that time also we kind of moved away from Ant to Maven, right? So wherein we can declare dependencies in a declarative way, right? And then can say that, yeah, I need these libraries, right? So Tomcat JBoss does provide some libraries, but it doesn't provide you everything, sorry. Right? So you will have to declare few libraries and then assemble that, right? And then now we are looking at new modern application softwares like Spring, Micronaut, Spring Boot, sorry, and then Micronaut and Quarkus, right? So Micronaut and Quarkus a little bit more advanced than Spring Boot, right? So you can have a look at that later. But right, they come up with a lot of cloud native technologies. They support serverless architecture out of the box and things like that. Okay, so but not as quite popular as Spring Boot, right? Okay, so if we look at in terms of size, right? So the size of the application platform is definitely decreasing. Okay, so we are talking about gigabytes and 600 megabyte Tomcat to maybe right less than 100 MB. Okay, with Spring Boot, and then Micronaut, I think it's maybe 5 MB or something like that. Right. So can we mute everyone, please? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, if one of you can, yeah, right. So, yeah, just an analogy, right? So earlier, right? So if you have to clean the house, you have to take a brooming stick and then do everything by yourself, right? And then came the generation of vacuum cleaners, right? Wherein you can use a vacuum cleaner and do, right? Now we are talking about robots, right? So you just turn them on, they move, or you can just sit in one place or you can just lie down and then they do all the cleaning, they move around, right? So that's the mindset everywhere, right? In terms of any device that we take, right? So we want everything to be automated, come default. We as individuals, right, want to reduce our work as much as possible. Okay, right. So what is a characteristic of a modern platform? So just let me take a time check here. Okay, yeah. Great. Yeah. So so let's look into, right, what are the characteristics of a modern platform? Okay. So when we talk about, right, a modern application platform, right, we want faster startup times. Okay. We want the application startup time to be really fast. Okay. We want it to be small and lightweight. Okay. So, right, as the application platform servers, right, the smaller the size or the that they occupy, right, the lesser is the cost, right, and there are various advantages. Okay. And then we also need a flexible application. Okay. So which we can right now, right, the catchword is DevOps, right, and in DevOps, right, we want applications to be easily modifiable, right, in different environments, right. So you just need to maybe, right, um, change few environmental variables and it runs, right. It was running in dev and then now it runs in production, right, just with few minimal changes, right. And then we also want it to be easily integratable, right. So it should be, I should be able to integrate with various third-party libraries and softwares, because not everything is packaged within the application software, right, because we want it to be small and lightweight, right. Great. Right. So why do we need this, right? So I've just put the corresponding needs, right? So these are the characteristics, right? And why is it required, right? So I need faster startup times because now it's the world of scalable applications, right? So we want our applications to be highly scalable, right? And then we want it to be small and lightweight because we are talking about frequent changes, right? So like, for example, we do a Docker pull each and every time, right? And let's say that you tomorrow, right, we are all moving towards SaaS, right, and in a SaaS world, right, we could have frequent deployments, right. So and then I would have to pull the images into that SaaS environment, right. So my pull should be faster, right. So if I'm going to pull 2 GB of image daily, right, so it's going to be a much slower, more cost and all those factors, right. So we want it to be smaller, right, and easily configurable, right. So primarily for the DevOps use cases, right. And then we are talking about integrations, which, right, so it should be easily integratable with various third-party libraries which provide different functionalities, right? Like security or caching or database integration and such stuff. Okay. And yeah, right. So from a faster startup time, right? I know I'm repeating it multiple times, but it's really key to understand that, right? A faster startup time nowadays, right, is not like something good to have. Okay. It's a must. Okay. So, and then, right, the platform kind of provides you with a lot of good things that enable a faster application, right? But from an application perspective, we will also have to take care that we don't put a lot of stuff as part of our startup scripts or something, right, which is going to delay the boot up of our application, right? So why is it so important, right? So let's take a serverless case, right? In a serverless application, what we are typically talking about is going from 0 to n, right? That's what a serverless application. So it is going to remain idle when there is no application request coming to it. But as soon as it is bombarded with 100 or thousands or even more than that, right? So it is going to spin up some instances of that particular application to serve these requests that are coming into it, right? So when I say that spin up from 0 to n, right? So let's say that it takes 10 minutes, right, to do that spin up, right? Then my initial 1,000 or, right, those requests, whatever I get in the 10 minutes, right? So it's a pretty bad customer experience, right? And maybe none of these requests might work, right? So somebody might even get a timed out error and things like that, right? So, so it's a big no, right? So we want the startup times to be in fraction of seconds, right? Or max 1 or 2 seconds. Okay, so that's what we have to aim at, right? And similarly for auto scaling, right? So why do we auto scale, right? When there is a huge load in the system, right? So your server is let's say that it's bombarded with a lack of request, and then your CPU utilization goes to 90%, right? And then your CPU is basically crying, right? Okay, come on, spin up a new instance, right? And reduce my load, right? At that time, I'm going to say, oh, okay, CPU, just wait for 10 minutes, right? And then let me spin up a new instance, right? Doesn't look good, right? By the time maybe your instance is already dead, right? So what we want is, right? So primarily for the serverless and auto scaling, right? We want an application server which will enable us and give us that faster startup times, right? And Spring Boot is definitely one such application platform server, right? Which will enable us. But yeah, it also depends upon, we should also, I mean, you can override that, put up a lot of things in the startup, right? That is something that we have to avoid, right? And then dynamic configurations, right? So in the world of DevOps, right? So when we say DevOps and other things, right? Not going into the details of that, right? So a basic requirement of DevOps, right? In my perspective is, right, that you want an application, right, that remains consistent, right, in different environments, because we do bulk of our testing, right, in an integrated environment or in a pre-production, right? And when I get into production, right, I don't want a lot of changes in this application, right? Let me not even say not a lot of changes. I want zero changes to be happening in that application, right? And any changes, right, that I want to have should be external to the application source code or the application binary. Okay. So, right. So this platform, right, Spring Boot, right, if we go into deep dive, which we are not going to in this session, right, but you can, when you read about it, it provides a lot of things to facilitate that, right? It even has features wherein it can pick up environmental variables and then basically read those values, or those properties can be fed through a constant property file, right? Or it can automatically pick it up from an environmental variable, right? And there are more advanced things like a Spring config, if we go into, right, there wherein there is a centralized configuration server for your whole application for a different set of microservices, and you just change the configuration in one place, right? And then your whole application basically behaves, right, or changes as per the configuration that is defined in a central place, right? So Spring Boot basically takes a good step forward, right? Enabling the DevOps use cases, okay? Supports the dynamic configuration aspects. Right, so all these things, right? So if you see, right, there is something called the 12-factor apps, right? So somebody forwarded this to me maybe 5-6 years back, and then when you read about it, you will realize that, right, a modern Kubernetes or Docker, the microservices architecture, right? Everything, right, comes from this, right? There are, I mean, so this is, I mean, I would highly recommend going through the 12-factor app, right? So maybe spend a weekend, go through this in leisure, and then a lot of concepts that we see today in Kubernetes or Docker or in the cloud native architecture, right? All basically, right, comes from, right, all at least adheres to this 12-factor app principle. Okay. Okay, so let's now see, right? So what is Spring and Spring Boot, right? And maybe, right, so for quite a few, this could be a confusion point, right? Like, okay, what is Spring and how is Spring Boot different from a Spring, right? So for folks, again, who have been, right, during the late 2000s, right? So we, or mid 2000, I don't know, right? But we used to hear Spring, and then primarily that time Spring meant inversion of control or dependency injection, right? And then even I think, right, so what we used, I mean, so earlier, right, for Java programmers, we will always say car. If let's say that we want to define a car class, we will say car is equal to new Honda, right? And then we had a factory pattern wherein you can create a factory class which will return whether it's a Honda or it's a Maruti or it's a Hyundai, right? So that was the kind of architecture that was there, right? But then initially when Spring came, right, it kind of brought a drastic change here and then said that, oh, okay, so you just declare saying that car, right? And then forget about as a pro, right? What is the car object actually is, right? And then we used to create something like a bean configuration file, right? Even if you now look into some of Spring in the website, right, you might find configuration files, XML configuration files like bean, and then what is the type, and then what is the actual object. Okay, so this is how Spring evolved, and then to a lot of folks, right, who have been not following this, right, Spring basically means, okay, dependency injection, right? But if you see, Spring has evolved a lot over a period of time, right? Right now, Spring is there everywhere, okay, in everything that you use. You want security, Spring can provide it. You want database integration, Spring can do that. In fact, Spring Data, right, is much better than Hibernate. Okay, so it kind of completely replaced Hibernate is what I would say. Okay, I've used both, and Spring Data is like a big win over Hibernate. Okay, and then Spring Core is what the dependency injection is all about. But there are so many things, right, apart from this, right? There is Spring React, then there is Spring WebSocket, and then Spring caching and Spring config, right? A lot of Spring libraries that has come into fore, right? And you don't need to really use Spring Boot to use Spring, right? So you can have just a Tomcat server and then go to your POM XML, and then you declare any of these Spring libraries, it would still work. Okay. So what is Spring Boot then, right? So Spring Boot kind of provides you with an application platform layer. Okay, so we already looked into what an application platform is, right? And then it kind of embeds that application layer within itself, right? You can have an embedded Tomcat or an embedded Jetty container within that Spring Boot. Okay, and then it kind of provided a nice integration with the Spring libraries, right? Made people's life much easier, and right, so that is what we will see in the right, in the subsequent slide sets and in the demo as well. Okay, so yeah, so you can say that, yeah, Spring is something that provides a lot of features in terms of different libraries, right? And Spring Boot and application platform server, right, that comes with some embedded Tomcat or embedded Jetty, right? So basically your servlet engines, right? And then it provides you facility to easily integrate with various other Spring libraries. Okay. Right. Yeah. So when we say Spring Boot, right? So again, jargon here. So we will see what opinionated means, right? Spring on steroids means, right? So basically, yeah, it does a lot of things to basically ease application development. Okay. So there is something called Spring Starter. Okay. So so if let's say that I want to build a web application, right? So then you will have to basically include a bunch of libraries, maybe 8 to 10, right? So Spring Starter avoids that and kind of gives you one library, and then internally Spring Starter will take care of basically pulling all the dependent libraries in the class path. Okay. And then it also gives you an embedded application server, right? It could be Tomcat or Jetty or even Undertow, and then maybe even a couple of more application software, right? Basically the servlet engine. Okay. Um, and then it kind of gives you the auto configuration facility, wherein it basically provides you with a lot of default configurations, right? When Spring Boot application is installed and when you basically deploy your application on Spring Boot, right? And then also gives you the component scan so that you can tie up your application definitions with the actual objects. Yeah, but we will see a practical example of all these things. So don't worry if you don't get it now. And then it also provides you a lot of metrics for monitoring, which we call the Spring Actuator, right? And then maybe with a couple of more libraries, right? You can easily integrate a Spring Boot application with Prometheus as well. Okay. Right. So meanwhile, right, so I'm just rushing through the session because it's an hour of session, right? If you have questions, I would encourage you all to please type it in the chat window, post your questions. I know that we have a lot of Spring Boot experts within our organization. So I'm just expecting that 95 or maybe all of your questions, right, will be answered by somebody or the other who's attending this session. Okay. And if there is anything remaining, I would be happy to take that up as well. Yeah. Okay, right. So we looked at Spring Boot starter, and then I said that, yeah, you just kind of, it kind of gives you an easy way to declare a dependency, right? So let's say that you need a web application, right? So you just need to say Spring Boot starter web, okay? And then this web could, what it could do is, right? So then it could be a Spring Web, Spring MVC. There could be different libraries, okay, doing different related functionalities for hosting a web application, like logging for like right, like auto configuration, and then maybe exposing REST APIs, the Jackson library, all those sort of stuff, right? So if I just say Spring Boot starter web in my POM, right, I don't need to worry about, right, what are all those 10 or 15 libraries, right? So the earlier way, right, when there was no Spring Boot starter, I remember, right, we used to put one library, right, and then we will compile, and then when we run the application, it will say, oh, this requires that library, so you have not added. Then again, you have to go and keep adding, right? It was an iterative process. So this is really helpful in that way. Okay, so you declare one, and then it will take care of bringing all the necessary related libraries. Okay, and then Spring auto configuration, right? So so auto configuration, opinionated, these are all relative terms, right? So it's basically saying that, right, that it's a different I would say a design methodology, right? um, so, right. So one way of basically shipping an application, right? Just ship an empty application, right? Okay, with with zero configurations, okay, and then give a whole bunch of a document, and then say follow this 100 steps, and then get the application running. Okay, so this was what we were doing earlier. Okay, now what? Right. So even take your mobile phone, right? Just boot it up, just give it 2, 3 options, and then boom, right? It basically asks for your email ID, and then kind of figures out, okay, who are your contacts, this, and then gets the whole mobile phone up and running, right? With minimal inputs, right? And same happens in kind of an application software also, right? So here it basically doesn't come as an empty box, okay? It comes with a lot of preloaded or pre-installed defaults within itself. Okay, it will default run on 8080 port, right? Spring Boot by default uses Tomcat, right? And then it uses right, and then the moment you say I need a web application, it will also create a dispatcher servlet. It will create a logging, it will pull a logging library and all those things, right? So comes with a lot of defaults, right? And then, yeah, if you are not happy with one of these defaults, then you go and change. Oh, okay, let me override this default. I don't want 100 threads, right? But I have a really huge application with huge processing needs. Let me change that 100 thread to 200 thread, right? So that's something you can override. Okay, so that's what auto configuration is all about in a nutshell. Okay, and opinionated also is a kind of fits into the same thing, right? Wherein provide somebody with a lot of defaults so that somebody uses your application, right? Or basically installs. He gives very minimal input, very easy to onboard into your application, have a look at it, look and feel it, and then once he experiences the application, then go read the documentation to see what I can override, right? So it's like documentation just used as a reference, right? Not forcing folks to read documentation. By the way, right? You can just start up a Spring Boot application, right? With maybe in 5-10 minutes, you can read a document. I will even show that website, right? You can start it. But yeah, if you want more details, more overrides, more behavior, right? Then you will have to keep reading the documentation and keep playing around with the configuration. right? And then again, component scan and that configuration, all these things, right? So basically, kind of removes the need of that XML, right? So if you have been using Spring earlier, you would have to create the bean definitions in the XML, right? Kind of all those things are obviated. Okay, so in the demo, I will also show an example of how you can declare a class that as a component or a service or a repository, and Spring automatically auto wires it to a corresponding type that you have declared in a different class. Okay. Right. So now when you hear all these things, right, on a lighter side, kind of scary, right? Oh, okay. So everything is going automated. What if somebody automates even our developer work, right? So that, okay, every code is automatically written and there is no need for developers in this world. Okay, so not to worry. Okay, so I just kind of read this, and then yeah, it's really true, right, that you need people to also accurately describe the requirement, right? And as long as that does not happen, right, we are safe. Okay. Yeah, like, okay, now let me take a time check. Okay, we are good on time. Maybe we will finish 10-15 minutes earlier. Right, and then yeah, what I want to show you is this particular site. Okay. So here, right, so it kind of tells you like how you can get started with Spring Boot in 15 minutes. Okay, it actually takes 15-20 minutes only, right? But if you're comfortable, if you already have Maven and everything already running, and you have a nice IDE like IntelliJ. Okay, so I kind of took this as an inspiration, but I just even maybe right added a few more aspects to this application, right? So but let's get started with the Spring Starter. Yeah, excuse me. So now, right, how do I start with a Spring Boot application, right? So you go to the Spring Initializer. Okay, so yeah, Spring Web is defined by default, right? Then let's say that I need security. You have Spring Security. Okay, let's say I need Prometheus. Is it there? Oh yeah, Prometheus. Okay, so so these are all the starter projects that I was talking about, right? So Spring Web is not a single library by itself. Okay, it contains a huge set of libraries, but if I add Spring Web to my starter project to my POM file, it will basically pull all the dependent libraries as well. Okay, so basically you can go here and say what you want, and then I'm just going to take up a simple Spring Web, right? And then there is documentation, right? It's not like as simple that you will get the security just like that, right? Of course, you will have to add the Spring Security, and then there is detailed documentation available on Spring Security, like how you can perform authentication, authorization, where are your users, whether they are in the database configuration file and things like that. Okay, so and then you can select which is the language. So I chose Java, and then right, what are your Maven POM XML, right? What is your artifact ID, the group? So typical Maven related fields, right? And then the Java version, yeah, still we are using 8, right, which is the lowermost. So yeah, so I kind of downloaded this already, right? And this is that Spring Boot application that is resides here. Okay, and then I also have basically uh, imported this into my IntelliJ. Okay, so this is that same Spring Boot application that you see here. And then we have to start the right. So the starting place should be that POM XML, right, wherein we are declaring all the dependencies, right? The artifact ID, group ID, all these came from what we defined in that starter project in that web page, right? And then we are using 2.5.7 of the Spring Boot, okay? And right, so and then the Spring Boot starter web, okay, which is basically because I want to create a web application. I mean, I'm actually not creating a full-fledged web application, just a REST API, but yeah, So it comes with all the related libraries necessary for that. And then I also have the Spring Boot starter actuator because I want to expose a few set of metrics and show that to you, right? And then starter test, yeah, I'm not really adding any tests, but yeah, it just came because I selected starter and right. And then yeah, test case is like kind of a must, right? Unit test. So it kind of added it by itself. Okay. So with this POM, right? So let's see, right? What is this, right? So this is this starting point, right? So this also came by default. Okay, I did not add this when I just downloaded. I got this, right? And then it says add Spring Boot application. Okay, the most important aspect. Okay, because this is basically defining what is your starting point. Okay, and then add Spring Boot application, right? Basically does three important things. Okay, it enables component scan. Okay, so when I say component scan, I'm just saying that yeah, look out for classes which are defined with art repository or art service or art component annotation so that I can automatically auto wire these. Okay, I have an example as well, right? If it is not so easily understandable, right? And then we are saying enable auto configuration, right? So enable auto configuration means for my web application, it will automatically configure a default context path, default port, maybe logging and all those aspects. Okay. And then, right. So, and then it also says that you need to enable the Spring Boot configuration. Okay. So these are some of the important aspects that add Spring Boot application enables, and you can override it. So you can even say which are the base packages to scan and things like that, as you see here. Okay. So, and then what I have here is, right. So since I have the Spring, what was that? Spring Boot Starter Web. Since I added that, I have the REST controller, everything enabled, right? So if I go into this libraries, right? So see my POM file entries, only maybe 1, 2, 3, right? And look at the jars that I have here, right? Plenty, right? So this is what, right, the starter did to me, right? So it kind of pulled all the dependent libraries. See Jackson library, which you basically use for REST, logback for logging, and then right, and byte buddy for instrumentation. So this is for the actuator, right, to basically expose you, basically instrument your application and then try to find out the metrics and then kind of show that. And then right, so a lot of JUnit specific libraries, Mockito, right, all these came because I just added 3 starter project. Okay, and then I have a bunch of libraries here. Okay, so that's the power of this, right? So, and it's opinionated because right, it kind of gave me Jackson by default. Okay, I have no choice, right? Maybe I wanted to use Jersey for my rest, but kind of got Jackson, right? And then for maybe for logging, I wanted to use log4j, but got logback, right? But you can override if you don't want these, you can override. And then I should also have an embedded Tomcat by the way here, right? Okay, yeah, it will be somewhere. I don't want to spend a lot of time searching for that, but you should also have an embedded Tomcat library here. Okay, but yeah, I can override and say I don't want Tomcat. I want to use Undertow or maybe Jetty. Okay, so even that I can specify here. Okay, so this is what opinionated and starter and all these things meant. Okay, so kind of it gave you all the defaults. Okay, and then now let me go into the hello controller. Okay, simple REST interface which has hello. Then you see the I just say hello service and I say at auto wired. Okay, I don't say what is this hello service. I am not doing hello service is equal to new hello service IMPL or something like that, right? But then how does it know, okay, what is the hello service it has to put here, right? So for that it you basically uses the add component or add service definition that we have, right? So basically I have an hello service. Okay, yeah, actually I should have done created an interface and extended it, but I directly went with the class. Okay, but nevertheless, right? So I just annotated this hello service with at service, right? And it belongs to the hello service. So it kind of knows that, okay, since it will scan when I say enable component scanning, right? It will scan this whole package. Okay, where is something, right? Like for example, where can I find a class of type hello service, right? And then it found this particular hello service and then kind of put this. But yeah, it was not the right way to do. I should have probably done something like hello service impl extends hello service. Okay. Yeah, but right now I don't want to change. I don't know whether it will work, and I don't want to debug in a live demo. Yeah, but yeah, I should have done it in a better way, right? Just to show the Java type and the object. Yeah. But yeah, so this is what component scanning is, right? So you declare what is the type, put this at auto wired, and then add this at service annotation, or I could have even added at component or at at repository, right? It would have basically found that this is the class and it will automatically tie this class to this particular declaration, right? And at service, at repository, they all have, I mean, even though they kind of are the same from a component scanning perspective, they are used differently for different purpose, right? But not getting into that. Okay. So this is the one, and then let me just start this application. Okay, so let's see, stop and trigger. So now when it boots up, it kind of automatically comes up with a dispatcher servlet. Okay, and then by default listens on 8080 port. It chose Tomcat. Okay, as you can see here. Apache Tomcat 9.0.5. I never declared that, by the way. I never said I want Tomcat, right? It's opinionated and it kind of pulled it by itself, right? And yeah, maybe around 2.6 seconds, it kind of started up. Okay. So let me go here and then say localhost 8080 and hello. Okay. So yeah, basically it hit this particular service and then this kind of got auto wired my hello service. And then I go here and then it returns me this message that I see here. Okay. So now let's say that I want to listen in a different port. All I need to do is right, go here and then say in the application.properties, specify this. Then let me restart. Okay. Now, if I say 8080 hello, it will say. Oh, yeah, so because it's no more listening in 8080, 9001, and it works, okay? Because of this, then yeah, so let me also see, okay, what are the metrics, right? Okay, so let me say, yeah, actuator, yeah, forgot that. Then kind of gave me the metric, not so great, but let me say what's the health, just say status up, right? But let's say that I want to expose much more, right, from metrics perspective. So what I do is I basically take all these things and then say expose all my metrics. Okay, that's what I'm saying. And then for the custom, I'm saying that, okay, also include the disk space. Okay, as part of a custom metric. Okay, that's all I do here. Now I go here and then say actuator. Oh, okay, I have not restarted the application. Yeah, so see a lot more metrics, right? And yeah, so let me go into now health, right? So this kind of gives you all the endpoint. Okay, so then you have to go to the next level and say health, and then now it says groups custom, and then I now go and say custom, and then yeah, kind of says that, yeah, it also gives me details of the disk space and the status of the ping because I asked it to do that. Okay, just a second, some interruption at home. Yeah. Okay. So, and then, right. So I can also say what is the info and then say, so here say, it says, right, somewhere it said info. Yeah. I type info. Okay. There are no info exposed. So that's fine. Right. But now let's say that I also want to expose some Prometheus metrics. Okay. Or, okay. So before that, let me enable logging. Okay. And then, yeah, let me add these. And I'm just saying that logging level is debug and this is my log file location, right? I restart. I kind of hit my service twice. Now I go here to this location and then, yeah, so I see this demo.log, right? And see, you see that it just got created now, okay, at 3:47. And then I can open this log and it has all the logs, okay. Fine. And then, yeah, let's say that I want to see Prometheus metrics, JMX metrics, and expose it into Prometheus. All I need to do is, right, not really connected with Spring, but kind of nicely ties it up with Spring Boot. And since we are all using Prometheus and metrics, right, so just thought I can show this as well, right? So yeah, just have a read on Micrometer. Pretty interesting project. Okay. But so yeah, since I added this Micrometer registry, right, to my Spring Boot application, now all I need to do is I have to go here and to my application properties and then say also show me. So Micrometer basically publishes all the metrics in that Prometheus endpoint. Okay, the context part called Prometheus. Okay, so I restart this and then started. So just ping this twice. Yeah, and then say health, not health, sorry, actuator, and say Prometheus. See, you see all the Prometheus, I mean, all the JMX metrics that is coming out. Okay. Basically metrics related to your threads and thread states, right? And then, yeah, I kind of played around with this and then tried to introduce my own, yeah, where is that? Yeah, right. So I just use that timed value, right? Basically gives you the count of hits, count, and basically the time, the response time for this particular thing, right? So for the hello world, it basically say, so I invoked, I think maybe not twice, I think 5 times. And yeah, this is the total time that it took in the 5 invocations. Okay. So now what Prometheus can do is it can go into this Prometheus endpoint, right? And you can enable scrapping, right? So yeah, so for folks who are familiar with Prometheus, right? So that it can store these metrics, it can keep scraping these metrics at periodic intervals, store it in the Prometheus time series database, and then expose it in Grafana dashboard. Okay. So yeah, I think, yeah, that's all I wanted to show. Yeah, I'm glad that I finished it 10 minutes earlier. Okay. Now, yeah, I have to answer some questions if in case you have anything, or maybe it's already there in the chat window. I don't know. Okay. So, okay. So are there any questions related to this topic, or otherwise, yeah, you can take back the 10 minutes and yeah, have a good day. So any questions, anyone?
The Spring help in serverless.
Yeah, I had. Kishore, hi, this is Vikram. I had a question.
Yeah. Yes, Vikram.
Can you share some insights about best practices of Spring Boot configuration in containers?
Yeah, maybe best practices of Spring Boot configuration in containers. So yeah, so the best practices is what we went through, right? So we have to make sure that the startup times and other aspects, right, are taken care. Okay, and then need to make sure that the startup times are good. But otherwise, at least I'm not aware, or maybe I can read about that, Vikram. So at least as far as I know, right? So it's pretty much standard, and so yeah.
Yeah. Today, a lot of these lightweight Java microservices are built, which is Spring Boot on this thing, right? Spring Boot on
Yeah,
container.
container, right?
Was curious if you had any insights around that. No, no worries. Maybe a topic for another day.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, I think someone else had a question. I think it was Pawan. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, Kishore, how do Spring and serverless, how does Spring benefit in serverless?
How? Sorry, Pawan, I didn't. So you are basically asking how Spring Boot and serverless, right? I see Pawan left. Maybe he will rejoin. But meanwhile, yeah, someone else has any question.
Hey, thanks, Kishore. That was very informative session.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe yeah, feel free to post any questions that you might have in the chat window.
Hi Kishore.
Yeah.
Any
Right.
good resources to learn Spring Boot from scratch?
Yeah, so the best way is, right, just follow that 15 minutes tutorial, okay? And then once you get it up and running, right? So then there are a lot of things, right? Especially with the way you bring up the configuration and all those aspects, okay? So yeah, there are quite a lot of resources. And then yeah, I did have one thing in mind, okay? So wherein they went into detail on every topic. I think I saved that to my favorites also. Yeah, I will just take a look at that, and I will just post it soon. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, were there any other questions? Okay, then thank you so much, Kishore, for taking out your time and explaining us all about the Spring Boot. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'll be sharing the PPT and recording with everyone. So let's meet again soon.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Bye.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Kishore. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Kishore.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kishore.